Hey everybody, before we get started with this episode, we have a quick request. We're fast approaching 200 episodes and planning out the future of the podcast. If you really love what we do and appreciate the great content we provide each week, then there's a few quick ways that you can support us with your time and consideration.
有几种方式可以来支持我们，那请大家到各大的 podcast 平台上面帮我们评分，让更多人能够得到有用的沟通知识。您也可以赞助我们，还有最后呢，我们最近有开箱 review 了 Thank You Trivolo U 蓝牙语言学习音响，那有兴趣的朋友可以点下专属连结。如果你想要了解更多，也可以到第194集的单元收听。
Your support and feedback has been immensely useful for us on this journey, and we hope that going forward you can continue to find value and enjoyment for what we do each week. Now, let's get into our show.
上次我们推出了一个单元，分享要如何 email like a boss。那今天就让我们来学习该如何 conduct a meeting like a boss。Hello， 欢迎来到 Executive Plus 主管与沟通力的 Podcast。I'm Sherry, an educator, certified coach, and style enthusiast. 我相信专业有效的沟通是语言跟逻辑的完美结合。
And I'm Nick, a startup consultant, corporate trainer, and late-night gaming junkie. I believe great communication requires the right mindset and solid frameworks.
我们希望带给大家职场英语的技能、跨文化沟通技巧与其他能帮助您成为出色领导者的工具。
Join us each week as we share our experience, research, and methodologies to take your communication and language skills from good to great. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Executive Plus podcast. Whether it's personality or culture, a lot of times people in a managerial or leadership role still feel very hesitant to show their authority, or they get overly apologetic, especially in an international conference call setting. In episode 186, we talked about how to email like a boss. And today, we want to talk about how to conduct a meeting like a boss. In a way that shows your leadership and authority, but still gets people to respect you.
Absolutely. 所以今天会带给大家9种不同的情景，是在我们开会当中会碰到的不同的 situation， 从 start of the meeting 一直到 Q&A session， 那其中会分享给大家不同的例句。So let's start with in the very beginning of the meeting.
How do you get kicked off? Well, a lot of people, in order to show appreciation, will get very thankful, sometimes too thankful, like, oh, thank you so much for meeting me. We really appreciate you taking the time. To be honest, there's not really a big problem with this.
Yeah.
But in the event where you're trying to show leadership or authority, rather than focusing it on, thank you, and we appreciate you taking time out of your day and making it just seem like this is all about the other person. Sometimes you can just switch it up and be like, I'm really excited about this meeting today. Or it's really amazing to get this time with you.
刚刚那个讲说，其实 thank you so much for meeting me, being grateful, 其实 there's nothing wrong with that. 但是如果你今天的开会的对象可能是西方的同事，那你必须要更多的 leadership 的这种角色的感觉，那你在语言当中你当然就必须要 reflect. So say, I am so excited about this meeting today. I think that's definitely a better option.
Now, what about if you have finished the small talk and the chit-chat and you really want to get into the meeting? Even I find myself using this quite often, like, oh, I don't want to take up too much of your time, so let's get started. But sometimes it's better just to show that you're in control of this meeting. You're trying to set an agenda, and you actually value everybody's time, including your own.
So you can say, we've got a lot to cover, so let's get started.
A lot more matter of fact, and without being apologetic about wasting people's time.
Exactly. I mean, a lot of times 大家开会其实我们并没有在浪费任何人的时间. It's a meeting. It needs to happen. So I think it's really important to set that tone that you are in control. You are the host of the meeting. 那下一个呢，也就是当我们有一些 technical difficulty 的时候 let's say 网络的状况不是非常的好，可能有些人的电脑有突然间宕机 all these lovely difficulties that we absolutely hate in the workplace, but that happens a lot of times. 那这个时候我们通常呢，第一个我们就会讲 Oh, I'm so sorry, I can't hear you, I'm so sorry, my computer just crashed. So instead of saying this, how do we say this so that it sounds like we're the boss?
Just being very straightforward and saying something like, I keep getting cut off. Let me log back in. Or, I didn't catch the last thing that you heard. Could you please repeat it? When it comes to these technical difficulties, we often sometimes feel bad or we feel guilty. But even when it's the other side, we have a tendency to apologize. What happens is, unless you can control the internet 100% of the time, sometimes it's not in your hands. So don't get overly apologetic. Just state what the problem is and state how you're going to resolve it. It's like, oh, the connection seems a bit laggy. I'm going to log back in. Or, I seem to have a slowdown on my computer. Please let me restart and then we can continue. Don't need to be apologetic about it. Just state, what's the problem and what am I going to do to fix it in a polite way?
下一个呢，其实也是类似的一个情景，也就是如果你今天听不懂对方他刚刚说那个字，或许是他说太快，有可能是他口音比较重一点，或者是这个单字就是你不是很确定的一个单字。What can you say? So usually we go straight to, my English isn't good. I don't understand what you said.
Yeah, and I see this a lot of times when people will also be at the beginning of the presentation, be like, oh, I'm sorry, English is not my native language. It's not so good. Forgive me for that. But in this case, there may be a lot of factors. Maybe, your listening requires some improvement, but it also maybe their accent is difficult to understand. Maybe they said a word incorrectly. But rather than bringing the blame onto yourself, you can just simply ask them to repeat. Or in the case of, could you say more about that last part? Or could you elaborate on the last thing that you said? Just have them repeat and give you more detail. Maybe you'll be able to pick it up the second time.
Yeah. So the next context, which is, 当我们在开会的时候，常常会有很多 information 嘛，可能你在讲的是上一周你开的会的内容，或者是你们 email 当中的内容。So there's going to be a lot of information that crossed and there's some misunderstanding. 那当有这个 misunderstanding 的时候 clarification is absolutely needed here. 但是通常我们第一个想法就是 say nothing. We don't even ask a question. We say nothing. And we just wanted to wait till the perfect moment to figure it out ourselves.
In this case, if you're in a position of authority or leadership, it is actually important that you understand what's going on. So something as simple as, just to clarify, could you repeat that last part? Or just to clarify, could you please go over that last piece again? If you're the host of the meeting or you're trying to get more input for your team, you may often be in a position where you're trying to get others to talk. Now, a lot of times we fall in this habit of asking a question like, oh, could anyone provide feedback or input? Or would anyone like to share what their thoughts are? But what you will find is a lot of times people will start to hold back or hesitate. Maybe they're trying to get out of the meeting quicker so they don't want to contribute. But when in hosting this meeting or when trying to facilitate a better conversation, you should actually just point out the person you want to share their feedback.
Like I would say, hey, Nick, could you share your previous experience in something? 所以我觉得这个时候就是具体在具体 specifics. You pick someone specifically and you talk about what you want them to talk about specifically. 所以因为你如果非常 open 的话，如果 could anyone share your insight， 这个东西非常的 open。有很多人甚至都觉得我就是不敢讲，我在这个状况之下 I don't know what to say。但是如果你非常 specific ask somebody， 或者你直接提供他一些 hints， 你请他能够说什么， I think 100% of the time that person will definitely provide you feedback.
Now, let's talk about wrapping up the meeting. Let's say that the time is up or things are going over. This is another moment where people will start to apologize. The time has run out or that they need to go. So they would say something like, we're running out of time. Is it okay if we finish in the next 5 minutes? Or would it be okay if I left first?
但这个时候，如果你要表现的是像领导者的一样 let's just say, let's wrap up and talk about what we need to do next. right? You get into action mode.
Definitely talking about what's next help bring a close, but also a conclusion to what's going on.
Now, the last two contexts, the last two situations are very common at the very end of the meeting, which is Q&A. 在 Q&A 的时候呢，如果有人问你一个问题，你又是听不太懂，或者这个问题有点超过出你的范围，当下你可能会讲 I don't understand your question. But if you're a leader, you can try to say, if I understand you correctly, you are asking this. You try to rephrase that question for them.
Being able to rephrase questions is a great superpower. There's also cases where you don't quite know the answer. And so people will, again, get apologetic and be like, oh, I'm sorry, I don't really know the answer. But when you're in this position where you want to show not just that you don't know the answer, but that you'll go get the answer, you may say something as simply as, I need more information to answer that question well. Let me get back to you after this meeting.
So actually offer someone a timeline. You can say after the meeting or let me get back to you via email by today. Give them like some sort of timeline so they can look forward for that answer.
Yes. One thing that you'll definitely notice in a Q&A, whether you know the answer or you don't know the answer, you should have some kind of action to make someone feel as though you will get them the answer that they need. Well, we hope that you enjoyed our quick look at how to run a meeting like a boss. For more information about how to do it like a boss, let us know what you think about this series in the comment, and we'll think of more scenarios to share with you on Like a Boss. We'll talk to you guys next time.
Bye.
Bye.
The Executive Plus podcast is a Presentality Group production. Produced and hosted by Sherry Fang and Nick Howard. You can search us on Facebook, 主管英文 Executive Plus. You can also find us on Instagram, Communication R&D, and email us at sherry@epstyleplus.com.